Welcome back to another episode of the Business of Beautiful Spaces. Today, we are talking about something that most small business owners and specifically interior designers believe doesn't apply to them because I was one of them and it won't until it does. That's cybersecurity. So if you're thinking I'm too small to be a target or there is nothing in my business that a hacker would want, you're not alone. In fact, that exact mindset is what's making small businesses the fastest growing target for cybercrime today. Hackers have changed their strategy. They are no longer focused on large corporations with massive budgets. They are intentionally going after small businesses, solo entrepreneurs, and small person firms because they know we don't have the same resources, systems, and protections in place. And here's the part that really surprises most people. Hackers don't always get in and strike right away. Often, they get in quietly and they stay in. They observe how you operate, how you communicate, how you invoice, and most importantly, who your clients are. They look for vulnerabilities and then they exploit them at our most damaging moment. Today's guest is a friend of mine, Jason deCourcy, and he is a cybersecurity expert who works closely with small and mid-sized businesses. Jason is here to walk us through what's really happening behind the scenes, why interior designers are more vulnerable than we think, and what practical steps we can take to protect ourselves, our businesses, and our clients. This conversation isn't about fear. It's about awareness, it's about prevention and empowerment. Because engaging in a cybersecurity team before there's a problem can be the difference between a minor inconvenience and a business ending event. So, if you run a small business, if you work solo or handle sensitive client information, as most of us do, this is an episode you do not want to skip. So, let's get into it. Welcome to the Business of Beautiful Spaces, a podcast that's specifically for interior designers and decorators. This is the podcast for designers and decorators who love creating beautiful spaces, but also know that building a profitable business is what makes it all sustainable. Hi, I'm Laura Thornton, and after nearly 30 years in the interior design industry and building a 7-figure design firm, I know firsthand how lonely it can feel running your own business. Making big decisions without a boardroom, without a business partner, or another executive team member to walk things through. That's exactly why this podcast exists. Think of me as your interior design bestie, the place you come for honest conversations, real action items, and a clear to-do list that you can apply today to move the needle forward and improve your bottom line. And if you can't get the answers you're looking for here, one-on-one mentorship with me is always available because no designer and decorator should have to figure this out alone. My goal with every episode is simple: to help you build a more profitable, confident design business and propel you into sustainable, successful future. So let's dive in. Welcome back to the Business of Beautiful Spaces. Thanks, Jason, for joining me today. I'm very excited to talk about cybersecurity with you, and mostly because I've known you for a while and didn't need you, and then I really needed you. So I'm really glad that we're going to have this conversation. Can you start off with telling everybody how you got into this line of work?
That makes me think how old I am. I'm in my 50s now. So I've been doing this for about 25, 30 years. Especially if I go back, like I started early in high school. I was charging a consulting fee to help people build computers and put things together. And then I left, went on to U of T. At U of T, I went there for a year, didn't fully agree with my computer science professor on some of the things and was helping them install their network. And I was thinking, why am I paying these people for things that I know how to do? And I was actually coming back from Ottawa. A friend of mine who was 26 or so at the time was driving back in his brand new SUV. And I was helping him on a project on the weekend. And doing things that I thought was fun, and I realized I have to go fully into IT consulting. And so I left U of T and went to do my Microsoft certification for an MCSE. It's a Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer. Did about 7-8 years of consulting on that, where I'd bounce around. I worked with Nortel and Storage Tech and Sunbeam, GE, all these companies. I never wanted to work for, I'm a true entrepreneur. I never wanted to work for somebody. It was funny. Every place I went to, they would always ask me if they could hire me. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm out of here in 6 months. I want the next interesting project. And then when the IT downturn hit and the bubble burst, I had about 18 months of losing contracts because the companies were going bankrupt in every possible way. And I had a company come to me, somebody I met at the Toronto Olympic bid came to me and said, "Do you want to manage this 25-person company?" And I said, "Absolutely not. I don't like small businesses, but I also like, paying my food and my
Bills.
rent."
Yeah.
And so I went into that company and I realized I love working with small business and I hate the corporate life. You go to small business, they're people like you're often dealing with founders, so they're making decisions. Everybody there is working towards a common cause, and just much a real environment. And 7 days later, I got another client and just built it from there. And so we manage clients now across Canada. We also have clients down in the States and in the UK, and it's been a wild ride since.
Well, and I'm going to share how you and I met. It was through an organization that is for entrepreneurs. And
Mhm.
we had to introduce ourselves and explain what we did. And you were sitting at my table and you got up and started explaining what you do with cybersecurity. And in my head, I was like, oh, I don't need Jason services. And the next sentence out of your mouth was, and every small business owner thinks they don't need us, but they do because you're the target. You're the target that now is what people are trying to hack and get into or that
Yeah.
actually need cybersecurity. And so that was a real eye opener because I was thinking, little old me, what would they possibly want with my computer and what would they
Mhm.
possibly get? And I thought like that right up until it actually happened. And so
Yes, unfortunately.
I, yeah, so we'll get into that after, but I would love for you to maybe go through that little nugget of why the small business owner is the one that actually is now the target of cyber attacks and what that looks like.
Well, I think there's been a big change in cybersecurity. Like if you go back 5, 6 years ago, you put on a decent antivirus, and you know that when your friend Tom sends you an email, he can put four sentences together grammatically correct, and he's not asking you for iTunes gift cards. Like back then, if you clicked on something, your friends are probably making fun of you. Nowadays, and it was also somebody in the background that was, we'd call them script kiddies. They would go out to the darker parts of the web, download these apps, get a list of people, go to a new Gmail account, and send it out. And, they only need 1%. They send it out to 1,000 people. They got 10 people to work on that day and get you to click on that. And you get ransomware or you get phished. You put your password into something or you send them something and then they can go. And so for a small business, it's not worth it to put that kind of effort into a small business. And then, if you're, a 5, 10-person, 20-person business, the amount of money you're going to get out of them is negligible, a couple $1,000s. It's just not worth it. So you're really going after the big companies because you want to get the 100,000, million, 2 million. It's now all automated. It's now AI. They're sending out like they can scan 1,000 IPs. That's your address on the internet. They can send 1,000 IPs a second now. They send out 50%, depending on which model you're looking at. 50 to 60% of emails now are spam, and some section of that is phishing emails. So they're just spamming the stuff out there, and you're going to click on it eventually. If you're in a big company, like you're in a bank or anything really over 100, 150 people, there's a security person on staff. There's a layer of security that's in place for sure. There's policies in place. There's ongoing training in place for the staff. All of that just cuts this out and makes it hard for them to get in. And then even if they do get a breach, it's into the first level. There's 5 people looking at that and seeing. For small business, that's not happening. Small businesses, we constantly see they don't have password management in place. They don't have anybody monitoring the accounts to see if something weird going on. So they're a lot easier. The phishing training is not there every month to try and catch people on clicking on things and then educating them on why they shouldn't have clicked on that, so that when it really happens, there's something to stop it. There's no like we do things like geofencing. So your account, it was interesting. I'll give you a story. We had a client the other day that owned one company, is starting up a new company, and we were in a meeting for the new company. And the client came to us on this meeting, and we were talking about security. And my security guy on the call said, "Is Marjorie in the office today?" And the girl sort of looked over. Yeah, she's at her desk. She just logged in from Miami. We're locking her account. And so, we
Mhm.
locked it down. We found out that an hour before, she had gone in, had been phished on an account, and they logged in on Miami. And, but we were monitoring that. We were able to catch that. If you're a small business, you might have antivirus on there. You probably have a password that you're using on your Facebook, account as well. And it's just so much easier to get you.
Let's face it, running your own interior design business can feel overwhelming. But guess what? You don't have to do it alone. I am so excited to introduce a brand new way to get the support you need. One-on-one mentorship with me, Laura Thornton, your interior design bestie. In just one focused hour, we'll dive into whatever you need most, whether that's pricing strategies, client management, presentations, attracting clients, building up a repeat business, or just getting out of the hamster wheel. You'll get clarity, strategy, and expert advice based on my 28 years of running a thriving business and over the last decade, a seven-figure design firm. This is your chance to get real answers to the questions you've been dying to ask from someone who's actually been there and is currently still walking the walk. Book your session as you need it. There are no strings attached. You'll walk away with personalized, actionable advice that you can implement right away. One-on-one, 1 hour sessions as you need it. Head to the website or click the link in the show notes to book your mentorship session, and let's build a beautiful, profitable business that you've been dreaming of together. This I know. And Jason's laughing because I had to call him in a panic because we were hacked, if that's the proper term. And I am not joking when I tell you it took us 3 days between two people in this office to change every password that was in our passkey Mac based keeper. And you always have good intentions of changing it 30 days. And I think some of those were in there for like 6 years as passwords. And then on top of that, there was three others that were there from before. Like it just was thousands of old passwords, new passwords. Like it was work. So this is something that I don't think anyone also puts into consideration is when you do get hacked.
Oh yeah, that's the
The
time that goes
loss
into
of
it.
work. And that was
Oh, it's
just changing passwords, even though I knew, and like I knew I needed to do that. But we're entrepreneurs. We have a list that's like as long as our two arms put together of things we're supposed to do, have to do, all the hats. So the passwords just kept falling
piling up.
away. And in my case, since I had the program they got in was Canva, and I'm sure 90% of designers are using it. It had become something that offered two-factor authentication, but our password was from 2018 and it didn't offer that at the time. And it was the same password. So now everything is double authenticated to the point where if I lose my phone, I am like right up the creek with being able to authenticate. But yeah, like these are things that I don't think anyone puts into consideration that for the small fee that comes along with cybersecurity on a monthly basis will outweigh the cost if something actually does happen to you for time
Oh,
and God knows what could
well,
also happen.
might
So
be a good segue to talk about like the cost. Yeah, I think people don't factor in the cost for the company when they get hit. Yeah, changing all of the passwords and doing all of that it
yeah,
takes a long time. It's very frustrating. There's the cost of like an MSP or an MSSP, like we are coming in and doing the work. On the
explain what
low
that is
end,
though before we go too far. What is an MMSP?
uh,
MMSP.
so an MSP is a managed service provider. And it's kind of a funny term unless you're in it. Nobody knows what it is. So we're IT consulting, and the S means security. So we're very security focused in the work that we do. So a normal MSP sort of comes make sure your network's working, your laptop's working, you can get your email. And we do that, but we also have a whole cybersecurity framework and layers of security on your system, and we monitor and manage that system going forward. And we do a report at the end of the month. So We show the training that went on and the tools and things that are in place and so that our clients can go and see what's happening. And also, we do a report at the end of the month with a score that says your security score is at here, and we want to keep it at this level. We need to make some changes to do that. So that's sort of the difference between an MSP and an MSSP. But the other costs around when you get breached, $2,000, $3,000 on the very low end of a breach, up to we had a client last year. They're about a 50-person office. They called us on a Friday, 3 minutes to 5. They had, and I'm going to be vague on some of these things, but they had a payment account where they could get payments. They had 8 of these accounts. 3 of them, they got an email that said your logon information has changed for these accounts, and they were locked out of them. So we went in and started looking at it. And so these people had gotten a hold of their payment accounts. And long story short, they had actually been on for 3 months looking at all of their stuff. Someone they had gotten an email saying, log into your 365 to listen to your voicemail because you just got a message. And they logged in and there was no voicemail message. They also don't have voicemail on their account, so she should have realized that. And they got in and they just watched. And that's one of the other things hackers do nowadays is they don't come in and blow the thing up on day one. They come in and they sit there and they watch and see what's going on. And they might not try and burn you. They try and burn your clients because you're the source of information, but then they go and hit the clients. So that cleanup process took us about 3 weeks. It was about $60,000 on IT costs. Then I know there was lawyer costs. I know they lost 3 to 4 clients that we know of because we were asked to remove client data and move it over to another system. They also had to report to the Ontario government, to PIPEDA, because if you lose privacy data, you have to report that. And they are now they just started as of, I want to say October, laying the charges where if you get caught and you don't have steps in place, they will fine you. That's the other thing where if you have things in place, they'll come out to you and go, okay, you got hacked. What were you doing? What was the auditing going on? What security do you have in place? What policy do you have in place? And if you're like, well, I use password 1 for all my passwords and I keep all my sticky notes under my keyboard, they're going to be, But if you can go, we've done all this auditing, we've got some security in place, we've tried to make the place secure, then you're in a much better position. Also with your clients as well, because you want to go out to your clients and say, hey, I got breached. Ignore some emails from me asking for $10,000 for the next couple of weeks. It's not us. And these are the steps that we took before, and these are the steps we're changing now, if that matters.
Yeah, and it's embarrassing, right? It's embarrassing to have to send an email to everyone and say, we have had this problem because, we have. And I actually had multiple clients write it back because a lot of my clients own their own business. They're like, we're so sorry this has happened to you. We understand what this is like. And they own much bigger companies. So thankfully they were forgiving, but the average homeowner is not going to be because they don't get it, what it takes to run a business. And they just see it as being irresponsible. Meanwhile, you don't know what you don't know until you do. And so that's why I think this is so important for people to know.
Yeah, they'll go the bank.
Yeah, their information, they have a lot. They have their address, their phone numbers, their emails. They know which banking you're using. They like in my case, they got my signature. They know everything. And like you said, they sit and they wait and they absorb information because information is like literally quantifiable now. It's got a dollar sign attached to it.
Yes. And I was sort of referring to how what'll happen is somebody breaks into your account and then you're talking to Tom about his big renovation project and they'll sit there and watch. And so on Feb 1st, that project is kicking off on the Monday. And you've been talking about how you can't do it any sooner. But, 5 days before that client gets an email from you saying, hey, other project closed early. We're able to start early. So, send us the $20,000 deposit. Here's the documents that we were talking about on our last thing. I'm not sure if I sent them to you. Here's a 6-paragraph email talking about all that and send it off. Client sends the $20,000. And then on the 1st, you say, hey, we're ready to go forward. Oh, we've already paid that money. Not to me. And then you realize that you've been breached. And then you get in a situation of, do you do the project without getting paid? Do you tell the client they have to pay it? Do you do 50-50? What other clients are they talking to that they're pulling the same scam on? It can get bad really quickly.
And lawyers get involved really quickly. I actually know a client who they were not hacked in the end because forensics figured it out. It was the company they were working with, but they had paid a very large invoice to exactly what you're saying that looked like it was coming from the person I know. And then when they called up to say, now you owe this money, they're like, we already paid it. And they're like, no, you didn't. And they're like, yes, we did. So now they were both telling each other that each other was hacked and had to get forensics involved and lawyers. And so it's messy, and it was almost a 7-figure sum. So it's ugly. And these are
Yeah.
the things that like you don't even think will happen to you because it might be different scale for a large company, but if a small company, like someone tried to take 50 to 100,000, it could bankrupt a small business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
lose the client over it, maybe. Like maybe
Totally.
you lose the
And
50
all
and
those
the client.
referrals. Yeah.
Yeah. Very
And
cool.
I know you had mentioned to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, because there was a lot of information when you and I were going through this, that the more entry points you have are dangerous, meaning all these multiple seats of things that we're all paying for every month, and all of these different softwares. So can you dive into that a little bit and what that looks like and how we can protect ourselves?
Well, I think it's there's all the services that we have out there. Like if you go back 5-10 years ago, you could probably say, oh, I know all of my accounts. I have my email, I have my Facebook, I have my Apple ID, maybe a Spotify. And nowadays, you could have 40 or 50 cloud
Oh
services
yeah.
out there that you're paying
Oh
for,
yeah.
and you forget about all of them.
I have all these, Jason. Look at these posts. These are all seats that I pay for, and I keep track of because I'm trying to eliminate them. This is actually 6 pages of small, like a large post-it note. If no one else can see us, all seats that I pay for every month. It's
Well,
maddening.
I'll throw out a non-cybersecurity tip. Throw your credit card statements into AI and ask it to find all your like throw in a 12 months
I've
worth
done
and ask
that.
it to find
Yeah.
the recurring bills and what they're for. And then you might find that there's a zippy.com. Oh, we used that for that project 8 months ago and we're still spending $40 a month. Let's kill that. So if everything that you can log in with, so especially it's your Google and your 365 accounts, and we see this every so often. A client started with Google, but they want 365 and they have both, and now you have two different vectors for how you might have you have an email on both for sure, and so both of those can be ways that someone can get phished on, or someone can figure out the password and get into that account, or maybe the providers give it up in some way because they get breached. So you want to be mindful of that. Reusing your password, people reuse their passwords all the time. And so if you reuse your password across 6 accounts and one of those gets breached, then they can easily go to the other.
Easy pickings. Yeah. Yeah.
Like a thing I definitely want to talk about is email. Your email is your skeleton key to your digital life. Laura, if I get your email account and I want to do nefarious things, one of the first things I can do is I go to facebook.com and go, oops, I forgot password. Can you send me the password reset? I get that email. I set a rule up to send it to Jason and delete from Laura's account. And then I click on that link and I reset the password and I'm into Facebook. And then I go to your bank and then I go to all these other ones. So make sure your email password is good and it is unique. It's not used anywhere else. And by anywhere else, I mean if it's Kalamazoo, it's not Kalamazoo1 on Facebook. There is no other Kalamazoo
I
anywhere
know.
else. We see that a lot.
Yeah.
And a nice thing I can say for passwords, the old style was that you have to change your password every 30 days, every 60 days, or whatever. That no longer is the belief in cybersecurity
Okay.
circles. The belief is have a good password every couple of years, change it, but have one good password, because we find that when you change it all the time, people start doing Kalamazoo 1, 2, 3, and it goes under keyboards and all that. But set a good one up. And you can also use a sentence. Like you can have 12 green frogs jumped in the lake. Easy to remember. It's quite long. And that's a strong password. And you can remember that. You don't have to have, an alphanumeric password is the ideal. but you don't have to use it. You can just choose a longer one and keep it strong, but keep it to your email, and then have two-factor authentication on.
Mhm.
So
It's my new evil friend.
the advanced thing on two-factor authentication is a lot of people use text. The problem with texting and what hackers are doing is if you want to hack into Bell or Rogers, that's pretty hard to do. Or, Bell in the US, that's pretty hard to do and take over someone's account. But if you want to go to, some third world locations where they don't have the same level of cybersecurity on their in their telco, you can get into that. And it's like you can send your text message from anywhere in the world on your phone. Your account can also be set up to send text messages. So what they'll do is if you're using text messaging, they can get your phone number and they can break in somewhere else, and then they can get all the text messages that go to your phone.
Mhm.
So the two-factor authentication comes in. So we always recommend you download either Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator. It's an app on your phone, and you use that. So it's unique, and it's not out there in the world for anyone to grab. And that will securely lock your email down. That's really your main one. That's the scary one.
What are your thoughts on, like, I'm on a Mac and it always wants to generate a crazy password for me with dashes and ups and downs and all arounds, and like it's like there's no way you would ever remember it, so I never use it. But what are your thoughts on that? Because then it's going to put it into the password keeper, which is a no-no. Uh, I now know. But what's your thoughts on those? Is it better to do the "my frog ran down the road" like sentence over those crazy
Well,
passwords?
I think for your main email account, like I don't like having my main email account in any password manager or anything. It's the one that opens up the door to so many things.
Mhm, mhm.
Otherwise, one of the tools that we use, as you know, we use a password manager. We don't use the ones that are built into the browser. We use one called Keeper. There are a number of them out there. There are a number of them that have been hacked. Always good to see if you're going to use a password manager to go online and ask how many times it's been hacked. I can tell you if it's been hacked twice, that's the tip of the iceberg. Those are the times they've admitted it or someone has whistleblown
Right.
them.
Mhm.
And in those cases, yeah, like I would use a strong password. Like if I'm logging on to, I don't know, a new website for a new cloud service where I'm just going to be using that on my laptop, then I will use Keeper and it'll create a long password and I'll put it in there. But I'm not typing that in the future. The password manager is typing it in. So I don't have to remember that password. And so I do want a really nice 12, 14 character alphanumeric that is hard to get. And the length of that is long also, so that if someone ever gets the encrypted database, it's much harder for them to decrypt. Like a 14 character alphanumeric is you just don't have the computer power to decrypt that, in less than 70 years. You're just
Oh,
not
that's
doing
cool.
it. Yeah.
Good
But
to
if
know.
you're doing an 8 character, that's where you start getting into the realm that it's easier to hack into. And while we're on the topic of password managers, one of the nice things that you can do with a password manager, especially when you're running a business, you bring in an outside, interior design, you bring in another designer to help you on a project. So you give them access to Canva and other apps for that 3-month project. And then 6 months later, after you fired them, you realize I never turned that off. That's why our numbers have been changing on our invoices randomly. That's why, because this person's been able to log in. So with a password manager, what you do is you can share out the logon for that account, and it'll automatically log in for them, but they never see the logon information. And you can set it to 2 weeks or 2 months, and then it dies. So you don't forget to remove their access. And it's great for employees as well that when you let go of an employee, you don't have to go and change 16 passwords because they never had the passwords.
Right.
You just
I just
close
have
that
this
account and they're
flash
done.
image of the moment I called you guys to help me, and you were on a call within 5 minutes, and three of you were on the call, and they're like, "What's your password?" And I started to say it, and all three of you in
No.
your all individual boxes were like, "Don't say it out loud." And that fascinated me too, because you were like, never ever in a Zoom call, never say it out loud. And I was like, okay, this is like wild, where you think we're on a call, it's but you're like never. And that was a big eye opener too. Like never say it in a call like
You
this,
just
right? You
don't
think it's
know.
just the two of us, and
Yeah.
it might not be. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like it could be that you were phished and they just got your logon and they're in your 365 account, but it could be that you've also installed some software and now it's on
Yeah.
your webcam and it's listening and watching. Like it's
Right.
one of the reasons to have a flick on your webcam so you're not passing
Yeah.
more information. Yeah.
Right. I know. Wild. Okay. So let's talk about that. Like someone
Mhm.
has uh-oh, something's funny. Like I wasn't sure. I will share my story. So I went into Canva to pull up a contract and I typed in I started to write contract, CON, and when CON and all these files showed up that weren't like they
You
were
haven't
about
created.
me and they were all stuff that we had done in the past, but it was all fake crap that somebody had made or a bot had made, whatever the case may be. But that was when I was like, ooh, something's up. I asked Samantha, who's my right hand, who knows everything, and she was like, why would I put invoices in Canva? That doesn't even make sense. And then I was like, oh, like this isn't cool. And like I'm like, I gotta call Jason. So I texted you within minutes. You're like, here's a link, 5 minutes, we're on. I get that that's not the norm, that not everybody knows a Jason who happens to own a cybersecurity company and can make that call. But the average person, solopreneur who doesn't have a network like that, what is the
Yeah.
first thing they should do? Give us the first three steps. Now that the people listening are going to have you, so great. But what's the first few things we should do?
So, and there's a number of the, maybe we'll take a step back. So one, you have there's a couple of different ways that this can happen. You clicked on something and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have clicked on that.
Regret.
And you know, that you're like, I just logged into 365, but I was already logged in. So why is it asking me to log in? Or, um, a client's just called you and said, hey, I just paid that invoice that you sent me and I didn't send you an invoice. Little things that maybe
Hmm.
something's in the system. If you're a solopreneur, your budget's not there. Likely that, you're going to want to call in a firm. First thing I would do is go in and change your password on your email immediately. Um, and on the platform, when you're in the security, it'll show you logons. It'll show you all
Hmm.
the devices you're logged in. And so you probably have your email, your phone, your iPad, your second computer. Uh, and you can see, when it was logged in and maybe even where it's logged in from. Um, if you want to be really clear, like you're going to kill all of those, change the password, and then start over. And you'll have to log them all back in later with your new password. That's the first one. And then I would start go through all your sent items and your deleted items, see if you see something weird or you're seeing emails being sent out. Like there's much less you can do as a solopreneur because what'll happen is people will get into your account and they can set up where you can set a rule that anything that comes into Laura gets forwarded to Jason and
Hmm.
deleted from Laura. You can go into the registry and do the same thing. And as far as you're concerned, there's no rules on your system. So emails come in and go out before you even know
Yeah.
that they're coming in and out. Um, and then it really depends on what the issue is. Like if one of your clients called, then like at least reach out to 5 or 10 other clients and say, hey, have you gotten any strange emails from me? Just make sure, you're following due diligence on phishing, because I'm not asking you for money. I think is what I can do. You're sort of limited on what else you can do because you just don't have the tool or the wherewithal
Hmm.
to go from there. If you're a larger company, um, like you're 5, 10 plus people, then that's where I would bring in a firm that does incident response on this. And then, we can go in and see what the issue is quickly. We can get into the audit logs on the back end on the server and see that one of your staff members clicked on a link at this time. And we now see that someone's, logged in from India. They've been on for 3 hours and that they pulled this information and they've sent these emails off. So we can find stuff like that. And the sooner we get in, the better it is. So the more time they have. That's one of the things going back to the automation I talked about earlier. What we see is if somebody clicks on an email on Monday morning at 10 a.m. and uh, if we don't get called in, because sometimes it's not until a month later that when they're not our clients. If they're our clients, we'll figure it out. But if it's not our clients, we come in weeks, months later, and we go all the way back and we find out Monday January 1st was when the person clicked on the email. And it's oftentimes 3-4 days later before activity happens. And I think what's happening is the automated tool is logging in, and 3-4 days later, the guy sitting in Russia or India generally gets his hit list for this day is these 10 people. So you've got the login. So he goes in and starts looking around and goes, oh, there's interesting stuff. They've got interesting clients. Okay, we're going to go and start doing this. Or this client, doesn't have stuff we want, or we want to ransomware them. So we're going to send them emails from their clients because we've read all their emails. We're going to send them interesting emails back to them so that they click on it. So it's there's so many angles on it. It's a nasty world.
So I just want to make sure I understand, because you're saying if it's like, because I think that there was a lot of value in, even in my small business with not 5 employees, to call you, to have you to spend the money, to have you do the deep dive, figure out where I was, because it gave me peace of mind to know that you had cleaned out whatever needed to be cleaned out, whatever needed to happen was shut down.
Mhm.
Yes, we'd lost 3 days of doing on my, it was also because I wasn't staying up on it and didn't have anything protocols in place. But there is something to be said if somebody is a solopreneur and wants that peace of mind that they aren't going to have, still someone in their system, because I don't know anything about computers. I still think that there's value there. I know you're saying 5 employees and up, but they could still reach out to you if they wanted you to do.
They can, yeah.
The monitoring from Go is huge, but if they hadn't done it, and if they, they could still reach out to a company like yours and gain that peace of mind to know that everything is done properly, it's cleaned out, you're protected, all the things have been run, and all of that is
and if you've been hit as well, one of the other benefits is that you can then go to your insurance. We'll do up an industry standard report for your insurance around cybersecurity insurance if you have it, and to your clients. You can say, we brought in an outside firm, they've cleaned it up, we found what it is, we've taken these steps, going forward you can trust us because we've got things in place. So there is that benefit for sure. But it's there's a
insurance
cost.
is an interesting one too, because I was sitting, actually we were there together in an about cyber insurance, a seminar that we attended, and the person was talking about cyber insurance and how everyone just assumes it's part of their business life. So I had just re-signed the day before my insurance. So as he was talking, I was under the table like mad reading, and the 3 exclusions, there's only 3 exclusions in my liability insurance, and the number 1 was cybersecurity, not covered. Acts of war was the second one, just to give you context. And the third one was basically like asbestos, because we're in construction. So those 3 items not covered. So there is, and because we are working with you and your team, we have cybersecurity. We also get a bit of a break on the cyber insurance because we are protected. But they asked a ton of questions. And because we engaged because we had been hit, even though, again, it was on my to-do list for January. I was going to get to that in January. It happened
Murphy's
because
Law.
I had to, right? It's because I had to, and that's fine. But there is something that once they know that you've protected your business, it saves a little bit somewhere else. So that's a whole other. But compare the cyber risk and the cyber insurance coverage, and what your thoughts are there.
So, I'll say I'm not an insurance guy, and anything I say is.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't mean that.
But I just want to throw that out there because laws. So there's different levels on this. You don't have any cybersecurity insurance. The next level up, and I want to say the more common level is you do, and it goes up to like $20,000 or something, and we'll tear through that quickly. Like if it's been a major breach, and we're doing emergency support, and we're running 40, 50, 60 hours straight through a weekend, we're going to eat $20,000 with the team really quickly. And then that doesn't even get and then they might say, and we'll give you, $5,000 towards your legal fees, which, if you've just screwed over a client and now their costs are $50,000, $100,000, $1 million. So you want to make sure that are not only covered, but that you have real coverage, that you're, maybe $500,000 or $1 million in coverage for that. Those are sort of the 3 different levels, and you should talk to your business insurance guy and say, where am I? And pose a couple situations. Say I got phished and a couple of my clients, sent me money, but it wasn't to me. How is that covered? What, and they want to sue me. How is that covered?
Hmm.
And see what the answers are on that.
But
Find
like
out
anything,
before
the
it happens.
insurance is a coverage, it's a layer of protection. But then if someone needs to reach out to a cybersecurity team like yourself, it's all covered in this insurance, which I thought was it's you know
We,
yeah
in our experience, when they have the coverage, in our experience, will the insurance comes back and says, that's a valid company doing the work that we wanted to get done, and we're going to cover the costs on that for sure. And insurances, they're all about lowering the risk. So if you can go back to them and say, we've got a suite of tools. We're doing phishing training. We're auditing. We have all of our data backed up. So even if somebody ransomwared us, we're just going to tell them goodbye and pull our data back down. All of that, they're going to go, oh, you're a low risk. So low risk means less cost to us, so we can lower your premiums. But if there's nothing in place, and when you
yeah
get hit, I feel if you get hit and they say, so how did you get hit? Show us your audit log. Show us the backups you do. Show us the training you do. And you're like, they're going to go,
yep
so you left the doors down and the keys in the ignition and no
yeah
security cameras when you want us to pay for what car? That
hmm
doesn't sound like a good idea.
yeah
Line
yeah
13C says you need to
yeah.
have certain exclusions in place.
And like you said,
Now,
they're starting to make laws around it because it is so prevalent
yeah.
in
And it
every
depends on
industry.
your insurance. Like I know I was at a cybersecurity insurance event a while ago, and I said that, and the insurance company there said we don't generally, unless you flagrantly, drop the ball, we don't deny claims. But they know other companies that, insurance
Yeah.
companies that look for any reason they can to deny the claim because it's easy to deny it, and it's a business case. They're losing money when they're paying it out.
Well, and a lot of small business owners don't even know this exists, this type of insurance exists, or that these problems exist, or that we are the target for these scams. Like this is the
Yes.
thing, right? We don't know what you don't know. But okay, so I'm just going to recap. The three things that we can do today is change our passwords, double authenticate, and look at a password manager that is not the one that's built into to the Googles or the Macs of the world or whatever the 365. Okay. Um,
Mhm.
Now, where people are going to be buzzing after hearing this because their minds are going to be blown like mine was when I met you. Where can they find you? Where can they learn more about what your services entail?
You can come to our website, Xoomler.com. And there's there's sections on there where you can click off what it is you're looking for. You can also send me an email directly to jason@xoomler.com. For those of you that are just listening, that's JASON at XOOMLER.com. And then we can hop on a call and talk about your environment and what it is that what it is you need. Ideally, we're not talking about it, during an incident. We're talking about it beforehand. And we're also our security is part of what we do. Mostly what we do for our clients is we fully manage the IT environment. We come in, we roll out our security stack, and then we take over the environment so that it works, so that people have working laptops, they have a properly working network, and they can just focus on their actual, core
Hmm.
business. It's shocking to me still after all these years how many times I come in and I see the founder of a company buying a laptop and setting a laptop up, and I'm like, should you not be bringing in clients or designing a house? We'll do that in half the time when we'll do it right. You're not saving yourself money. Um, so yeah, we're going back to an analogy of sort of like accounting. We're the the accountants and the bookkeepers. A lot of the stuff I'm going to say there's sections of that you could certainly do. We're going to do it better. We're going to do it
Hmm.
faster. We're going to do it best practices. And you should be doing other things to bring in the revenue and let us do it
And
right.
this is different. This is not a learning curve. This is something where it's just moving at a pace that unless you wanted it to be your full-time job, you're not designing anymore. You're going to be fully focused on cybersecurity because it is nonstop every day. Because to your point, we
Yes.
had a big company in Toronto here. Anyone who's from Toronto is listening. I'm sure you got the email. It was a huge lighting and furnishing store, and we all got an email. And I looked at it and thought that looked weird. I didn't click it, but someone in my office did. And like, this is, and
Problems.
it was 5 days later that they sent an email saying, don't click on this email. Okay, thanks. Right. But like this is every day, all day that you're fending off which emails are real.
You bring up a really good point, because we have clients every so often, they start hitting like 100 staff and they start saying they want to hire in-house. And the in-house staff just don't have the experience. An in-house staff member that's gone for 5 or 6 companies and dealt with, some security incidents in between does the same level of security experience that my team does in their 15-year career, my team does in a month. And if you don't have that, like a new instance we saw the other day, and this is a solopreneur actually, I think it may be our oldest client. They got hacked. Person got in and took over their account. He called us up. We got in, locked the account down, but they were still sending emails. And we were trying to figure out how, because the account was locked down. And then what they had done is they gone into 365 and set up a way that you can have a local server act as a mirror for your cloud server. And they set the server up in, it was India, I believe. And so that server, and it was not an easy thing to find. We went through and found that this other server was running and had to lock that server up. Yeah.
There's things. And with AI now, like when you said to me that the bot that got into us was a bot. It's not even a person. It's a bot that was digging and fishing and looking for mining for info, found it, goes on a list, and it waits until the person shows up on Monday to go to work. Because it's a real job. This is we all envision like a sweatshop, but that is not what this is, right? And so that's the part that also was shocking to learn, that this is a real job. That someone shows up like Monday 9 to 5. Monday to
that's
Friday.
A multi-billion-dollar industry now.
Yeah. It's that AI is going to change it so rapidly that you don't have a chance. Designers, let somebody actually knows what they're doing do it. So thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. I know it's valuable. Trust me, I know. But I thank you, because every small business owner really needs to know this information, and reach out to Jason. He's super helpful.
No problem. I'm glad. I hope I opened some minds around cybersecurity and some of the steps that you can take. And we only deal with small businesses. We're a small business ourselves, so we know the pains that people go through, and we know what budgets are like. And so we're really conscious of that with our clients. So if anybody wants to reach out, I can also. We have a sort of a 10-step. So that you can take this week, that you can check off on your environment. So if someone wants to send me an email, jason@xoomler.com, I can fire that off, and you can put some steps in place, even if you're a solopreneur. Or if you want to get on a call with us and we can look at your environment, I'm happy to do that as well.
And we'll put your email in the show notes so people can find you.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Always
Jason.
good chatting with you, Laura.